Hi. Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can. Hi.
Can you see me?
I can.
Woo! Okay.
Okay. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, you're so welcome. Thank you for being here. How's your day been?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
I promised to join you guys in my pajamas, but I just couldn't do that to you because, I mean, pajamas, come on.
I know.
So on the top, I have a regular shirt on, but on
Yeah.
the bottom, I still have my
Oh,
pajamas.
amazing. I love it. It's like half and half. It's like a mullet, the mullet of the online call. Yeah, so I first of all just wanted to say how incredible 6 Days in Bombay is. So beautiful. I was speaking to Neve previously, who was saying somewhat about how you came to come up with the concept, and I'm so intrigued to dive into that more because it sounds fabulous. Just before we start, I should say to everyone watching, there is a little grid of circles down in the right hand corner of your screen. It says meeting tools, and there is an option there to submit Q&A questions. So if you'd like to submit some of those during the Q&A, I will read them out. Alka, I hope we'll be able to answer them for you, which I'm sure she will. So if we dive right in, first of all, how would you describe 6 Days in Bombay to someone who hasn't read it yet?
Okay. So while I was researching the Henna Artist, I came across a name of a famous painter from the 1930s, and her name was Amrita Sher Gill. And I thought, I have a BA in art history. I have never heard of this woman before. And if she was so famous, why have we forgotten about her? So my attempt at 6 Days in Bombay was to bring this woman back to life and to have people know about her. So in the book, the year is 1937. We are beginning with a private hospital in Bombay. There is a young nurse who has just encountered her new patient, a famous painter, about the same age as she is, in her 20s. And the painter comes in. Within 6 days, she dies. And she was on the mend, which was really perplexing to everyone. The nurse is blamed and she loses her job, but not before she inherits 4 paintings from this patient with a cryptic note that says, you need to go to all these places in Europe, find my old friends and lovers, and deliver these paintings to them. So the nurse embarks on a journey to Istanbul, Prague, Paris, Florence, London, and back to Bombay. And in so doing, she solves the mystery of this young patient's death. And she ends up also solving some mystery about her mixed parentage.
Amazing. No, I think that definitely encompasses it. I think when I was trying to think about how I would describe it, I was like, well, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and oh, and then this takes you here, and this. And I was like, I don't know how to put compile it into a coherent thought, because I have so many thoughts and feelings about all of it, and it kind of encompasses everything you like in a book into one story.
Yeah, and I love stories like that, don't you?
Yeah,
Like where it's just like it's a little bit of a mystery. It's a little bit of a lot of character development and how they relate to one another. And maybe I learn a little something about the history of a place or people or something like that. I love those kinds of books.
Definitely. I definitely agree. I think when something takes you on a journey and it kind of differs from where you had originally expected it to go, I think especially with scene changes and scenery changes, going on a tour of Europe, it was like I was there. I have to say, actually, the way you describe places and smells and food and everything, made me so. I'm sure there's a word for it about how you can actually physically smell it or taste it as you're reading it from the page. I think you do it so beautifully. And that wasn't really a question. I just wanted to really thank you for that.
Well, did you want to know my secret?
Oh, go on.
Okay. So I can't describe anything unless I've actually been there myself. So for every one of my books, whatever I describe, whatever setting I described, I've actually been there. So I can smell and taste and hear everything that was going on while I was there. And then I can somehow acclimate it to the time period I am discussing and just make sure that it was also true to that time period. And then I put it in the book. So when you as a reader are feeling like you're in the setting and you're walking in the footsteps of the character, I have actually walked in the footsteps of the character. So like, for instance, like I will figure out based on where I think the character is staying, and I'll actually pick out a place in the city. For example, in Prague, I picked out a building where she is going, and I took a picture of it, and then I asked people about that building, and it turned out it was the 4-story building of this very exclusive and rich family. And then I knew right away, oh, that's where she's going to go to find the first friend and former lover of this painter. And then I, go from there to where the cafe is. So I figure out, okay, how long does it take to walk from here to the cafe? And then when I get to the cafe, I order what is famous in that cafe to order. And it was famous back in 1937, the waiter tells me. So then I know it's going to be the hot chocolate I just ordered with the whipped cream.
That's so funny. That must have been so fun as research to go on a round world trip.
Yes.
To go and explore.
Yeah.
It was like you did Sona's journey yourself.
Yeah. And part of what I do is, the research has to sound and feel authentic. So before I ever go, I start scouring the internet, like who is an expert in the 1937 period in Europe? Who is an art historian from that period I can talk to in Prague or in Paris? Who is somebody in London I could speak to who is an academician who studies painters of that period? So before I ever leave, I make appointments with all these people. And I know who I'm going to contact when, because I have my whole itinerary planned around their schedules. And so now I know exactly who I'm going to talk to. Then when I get there, I ask them to please take me on a walking tour of the places that I think my character is going to go. So as you see, and then that explores and opens up other settings for me. Like in Prague, my host there, she teaches at the Czech University of Sciences of all places, but she is like the perfect tour guide of Prague and knows all about Prague history and is herself like in her 60s. So she lived through the whole communist era and beyond the communist era. So she could tell me all about that period. And so she said, oh, your painter would have exhibited while she was living here, would have exhibited at this particular exhibition space, which was very popular in 1930s. So she walks me over there and we walk in. Now it's a cafe, but I could totally get a feeling of what it would look like as an exhibition hall. Wow. So that helped me describe that. I mean, I love doing the research.
That's
in
so
fact,
cool.
In fact, I don't know if other authors have told you this, but research is actually a great way that I procrastinate the writing part, because the writing is hard.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And the more I can spend down these rabbit holes of history, the happier I am, because then I'm like, oh, one more day I don't have to write.
I love that. I think especially because the book takes place on the kind of somewhat on the brink of World War II. I'm sure I'll go into that later. Prague in particular, and Czechia as a country, the amount of change that country has gone through in the past 60 years, longer than that. Is it? Yeah, it's about 70 years now.
Yeah. Well,
wow.
Let's see. So I first went to Prague in 1978, which was, I was spending my junior year at the Stanford program in Florence. And so for the winter time, we had a break and I ended up going to Prague. I wanted to know what it was like just to like be in a totally communist country where there was no advertising. Everything was very non-English. So hardly anybody spoke English to us. And when my traveling partner and I, when we went to restaurants, we would have to rely on the pictures because they had pictures for anybody who visited. So I would just point to a picture and say, okay, well, maybe that. Like I had no idea what I was ordering. And this time it was so different, you know. It was like this wonderful place which felt like a fresh Paris.
Yeah.
There's lots of cafes and you can sit outside and eat. And there's the Charles River, very similar to the Seine, but it's a lot cleaner, by the way. So I just loved Prague. I love seeing the difference between the last time I was there and this time.
Yeah, because it's the amount of change that has undergone. I mean, the whole of Europe, really, since that period. There's been so many bouts of change that you don't really think about until you kind of reflect on it.
Yeah.
And it's because they're so solid in the change, I think is the kind of word that I'm trying to think of. You forget that there are people who have lived through every single change that has happened.
Yeah.
And they have experienced it in every single way that it has been. It's so wild to me. I love history. I love that. The whole aspect of it. But I just think it's so fascinating. When you first came up with the concept, who came first? Did Mira come first in your head?
They both came together because the way that I write is there is one scene that comes to my mind first, and it's usually the very first scene of the book. So the very first scene of the book, what I saw is this patient is being wheeled in, and this young nurse is being assigned to this patient because she speaks perfect English. And the patient also primarily speaks English and Czech. And so I thought, oh, okay, so who are these people and what's going on? And then I thought, oh, that patient could be the painter that I've been reading about. And I think this is the perfect way to introduce her. Here's a private hospital. Here is a nurse who can bond with her, not only because of the language, because the nurse herself is half English and half Indian, so she speaks English perfectly. And their ages are similar, in their 20s. And then the two women share this kind of dual identity. And I thought, well, that's kind of fascinating. So maybe what I can show is the difference between them, even though they have a lot of similarities. What are the differences? So then I am watching this scene. I'm watching the actual oh, that's my dog, Coco. Coco, come here. I'm watching what is happening in this scene, and I see that in the room, I see where the window is, that the nurse is going to have to like open up the drapes and make this woman comfortable. There's a syringe with morphine, because morphine was what they used primarily to get rid of patients' pain. So the nurse has to, go to that. Then they start talking, and I'm listening to them talk. And the nurse is basically confused about where she is. She has no idea how she ended up in the hospital. And then the nurse has to try to sort of explain to her how that happened. And then the patient starts telling her immediately about her former lovers and whom she had the baby with, and how she did this and where she went. And the nurse is like, oh my God, this woman is so young and she's done everything. And I recognize her from the stories that I've read about in the paper. So that's the first scene. And both of the main characters are introduced. And even though we know that the painter is going to die, I mean, we know it because it's on the jacket cover, guys. I'm not giving you any spoilers. But even though we know she's going to die, she still remains a very formidable presence throughout the book. So I really call them my two main characters, the nurse and the painter.
I think I found that. I think I had gone into the book and somewhat come out of the book knowing that Sona was the main protagonist. And then as I was writing the questions, all of my questions ended up being about Mira. And I was like, hang on. It was so interesting to me, but I think that completely makes sense. They're definitely both as intrinsic to the story as each other. But yeah, how did you find the world building process? I know you said you went and did research in different countries.
I loved it. And I especially loved creating the 3D aspect of this painter, because so far all I knew about the real painter, Amrita Sher-Gill, was what I had read about in books.
Yeah.
And then the more I sort of delved into her past, the more I realized that this very bold, outspoken, promiscuous, talented, beautiful woman was far more complicated than she seemed from the outside. From the outside, she's confident. She is as comfortable in her Indian heritage as she is in her Czech heritage. She is not at all shy about the fact that she has bedded both men and women because she can. You know, it's almost like, oh, well, I can, so I'll do it. And at a time in 1937, when, you know, that really wasn't done, like a woman would be scandalized at being that kind of person. And also because she comes from this very upper class upbringing. Her mother really is scandalized by all of her, you know, the rumors that fly around about her daughter, and she wants her to settle down. So then the patient, you know, the painter herself, Mira, she goes, okay, you want me to settle down? I'm going to marry my first cousin. And so she marries her first cousin, and they have an interesting relationship. And this is very much a mirror of what happened in the real Amrita's life. She did marry her first cousin, and she did have a very open marriage, I should put it that way. So, you know, scandals never stop at Mira's door. They're constantly going on. So I had a lot of fun developing that character and having the nurse be just scandalized the way that Mira's mother was scandalized by her. The nurse is like, oh my God, you know, I had no idea women could do these kinds of things. And it opens up this whole world to her that I could build, this whole world of wealth, of privilege, of painting tutors that, you know, really ordinary people would not have had access to, exhibitions and exhibition halls that ordinary painters don't have access to. But the nurse gets to travel to all these places and walk in Mira's footsteps and really feel what it was to be her. And I think in so doing, she sort of takes on the painter's personality, which I felt her doing as time went on. And then she really sort of took it on, didn't she?
Yeah.
You know, in that kind of way that you're just rooting for her. You know, you're like, yes, go ahead and take that extra step. Do it. Be that bold, you know, get out of your shell.
I think that's what was so nice, was because you knew that she had it in her and you just wanted her to do it. And then she was doing it, and you're like, it feels like watching your child grow up on the page.
Yes.
It's really nice. So
and you know, like I was going to say, you know, how many of us feel so comfortable doing and saying exactly what we feel, right? And so I felt, as I was studying the real painter Amrita Shergill, I felt that awe of her, you know, like I just thought, I wish I could be somebody who didn't care what other people thought and just sort of said whatever I felt like doing, and, you know, grabbed somebody and kissed them just because I felt like doing it, you know, but most of us have filters and we don't do that kind of thing. And so partly I am rooting for Sona to adapt some of Mira's personality, because I would love to adapt some of that personality myself. I know I never will, you know, but it would be lovely to be so unfiltered.
Absolutely. I think it's always scary, isn't it? It's scary saying what you think and how you feel, especially in such a public way. Yeah, I think we could all do with being a bit like Mira, for sure. So you've previously explored women's roles in society within your previous trilogy. How do you think that theme evolves in 6 Days in Bombay?
Oh, so once again, you know, women who are being coddled or sheltered or, you know, given a pat on the head, like, oh, you're not really capable of handling really, you know, extraordinary things. So just, you know, stay in your lane. And so Sona is an example of that. Stay in your lane, Sona. You are not allowed to do anything more or be anything more than what has been prescribed for you. And then Mira is the example of a woman who is breaking all kinds of rules and getting out of that box and doing whatever she pleases. And so I think that neither one of those is exactly where we want to be. I think somewhere in the middle is a wonderful place to be, which is we do realize that society has some rules, but not rules that should dictate the decisions we make in life that are going to impact our destiny.
Yeah.
And for Sona, if her destiny is to help women, if her destiny is to help them grow, if her destiny is to help her daughter become a fully realized person, then that is everything that she should be able to do. And she should be able to decide on her own partner in life.
Yeah.
And she should be able to decide, where she wants to live and how she wants to, live her days. Those are all decisions that I think should be left up to women. And definitely Sona, gets to, luckily she gets to that kind of place.
Yeah.
And I think that's the life that my mother wanted for me. My mother wanted me to have this life where I could make all of my own decisions in a way that she didn't get to. So I think in a way, I'm always trying to channel my mother as the woman who doesn't get to do everything that she wants, but somehow is given the freedom to ultimately decide for herself how she wants her life to look.
Yeah, I think it's so lovely, especially because back then, I feel like women kind of across the globe very much didn't have that.
No.
And it was kind of scandalous to be a woman and say, actually, I don't want to get married, or I don't want to have children, or I want to, even as scandalous it is to say I want to choose who I marry myself.
Yes.
It's so, I feel like we're such a step away from that now, hopefully. That it's so interesting that you forget that is a thing.
Yeah, well, I was at a book event last night, and the book signing line, all these, women are standing there and getting their book signed. And so many of them said to me, this still happens today. This is not over. There are many parts of the world in which women still are not able to make their own decisions about how their lives are going to look, or whom they're going to marry, or whether or not they're going to have children. They're just expected to do a certain task, and they do it. And I think it's kind of scary that even in the US today, we are facing all kinds of restrictions placed on women. It's like we have suddenly taken 3 steps back from where we were. So, I'm a little scared at where our next generation might end up and not have as many liberties as you and I have experienced.
Exactly. I think it is terrifying. Is it kind of, it's just the thought of the unknown, isn't it? Where it's like you've come so far, and to watch it slowly going backwards and backwards and backwards, it is really scary. And I just hope that as the generation grows older, we kind of fight back a bit more.
Yeah. Well, remember Handmaid's Tale? I feel like Handmaid's Tale is coming alive today.
Yeah.
Women are going to be paid to have children of the kind that our president deems proper children. Oh my God.
I could talk about the president for so long. I probably should not. I have so many thoughts and feelings, none of them particularly fond. But hey, I suppose he has a nice tailor.
Yeah.
That's something I could say that's nice. We've got some viewer questions.
Sure.
First one is, with you saying you have to go to a place to write it, how does it work for you when reading books written by others? Can you picture it in your head? Can you only picture it if you've been there? I recently found out that not everybody imagines the world while reading, and it blew my mind.
Yeah. So I can always tell when I'm reading a book and I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling the setting. And I think either that author never went there, and this is their imagining of what it's like, or they did go there, but they don't write in a way that captures all the senses. And I am just somebody who naturally captures senses when I write. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
Maybe it has something to do with the fact that I am an artist. And, we artists, we tend to observe everything very carefully. So, green is not just the color green. I can see all the different nuances in the color green, like in the sweater that you're wearing, right? And I notice all the colors around you with the books on your shelves, and I notice the quilt behind you, and so I notice all of these things, and I love the earrings. Every time you turn a certain way, your earrings flash light. So I just notice things that maybe not all authors do. Most authors, if they're focused on plot, then they're really just, propelling you to the next scene and the scene after that. And so you're not really reading that book for atmosphere, you're reading it for plot. But if I am reading a book for characters and I don't sense that sensory input, I actually put the book down because I want to feel like I'm in the book. I want to feel like I'm immersed in the book.
I feel like this year is the year where I actually, if I'm not enjoying something, I will just put it down. Because I think oftentimes I power through just to say I've finished it. But I think this year, if I'm not enjoying something, there's so many books in the world. There'll be some that I enjoy. Why not just read those ones?
Oh my God, Neem. Okay, so this is a conclusion that I came to in my 30s. I said the world is too small. It is too short. I do not have time to read all the books just because somebody recommended them or just because I started it. If I'm not enjoying it, I give it 50 to 80 pages. And if I'm not enjoying it, then I set it down and I move on to the next one. Because there's so many good books out there.
Absolutely. I think like 50 to 80 pages is quite generous as well. Although I do like, if I'm really not enjoying a book, I do like finishing it just to be like, what did I just read? I really don't like something, but that's very, very rare. I think it's only ever happened once or twice in my however many years of living. We've got another one that says, where was the last place you visited where you went, I have to write a book set here?
I think definitely Paris, which is why I ended up writing The Perfumist of Paris, about, Paris and all of the perfume houses there and how French women take their fragrance very seriously. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And then I realized the relationship between the fragrances in Paris and then the ingredients that are used in those fragrances. And that led me to go all the way back to India and realize that the source ingredients are found in India.
Wow.
So the source ingredients like cardamom, like vetiver, like rose, like lavender, all of those came from India. Peppercorn, cinnamon, and so I was like, oh my gosh, so there's a great relationship here that I can tie between these two countries. So that's what led me to that. I think Bombay, so I call it Bombay in the book because in 1937, that's what it was called. It wasn't called Mumbai back then until 1995 or something. And so I thought, I have to write about Bombay the last time I was there, and because it's such a vibrant city. It's larger than New York City, more people, more stuff going on. It's gorgeous, and it's right along the water, so that there's a lot of bay, there's a lot of beautiful walks that you can take around that area. So that was definitely a motivation for writing 6 Days in Bombay, even though the real life painter, she didn't live in Bombay, but I felt compelled to write about Bombay. So I placed her there.
And she fits so nicely there as well.
Yes, absolutely.
It's perfect. It's like it was meant to be. And then we've also got Love the Handmaid's Tale. What books have been your biggest inspirations?
Oh, usually books that are historical fiction and that I've been reading, for forever. So of course, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. Love that book so much. Min Jin Lee's Pachinko, where I learned a lot about South Korea and their relationship to the Japanese. I loved, of course, the Joy Luck Club, which was the first time that I read a book where I realized that a culture could become a book, right? Where I learned a lot about the Chinese culture. And I go, oh, so you can write about culture as a major character of a book. So there was that. And then, of course, Kite Runner, A Thousand Splendid Suns, and then I read a lot of the Swedish fiction, because they've got a lot of great mysteries actually, and they write fabulous mysteries because I think for 9 months of the year they can't leave their home. So why not just read and write, read and write, read and write. And then recently I read this fabulous little book by Claire Keegan called Small Things Like These. Oh my gosh, I love that book so much. It's only like 90 to 100 pages. And as soon as I finished reading it, I started it all over again. It's so beautifully written. Every word is so carefully chosen. And then they turned it into a movie with, is it Cillian Murphy or Cillian Murphy?
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy. And it's a beautiful, beautiful rendition of the book itself. It's a great adaptation. Yeah.
That's so interesting that you can turn a 90-page book into a full-length film.
I know. I was so shocked too, but they did it, and it's just gorgeous. And
I suppose there's not much to cut out from a 90-page book. You have to keep it word to word.
Yes.
Yeah, he's great. He's fab. So good in everything he's in. But yeah. Another question that I had was that obviously we are, over the 6 days, we come to know a version of Mira that has kind of been created in a way that she knows what she's doing, and we only get one version of her, which is the side that she wants to tell.
Yeah.
How was it limiting yourself to that time frame, and were there any bits that were explored after the fact that you wish were incorporated more, or anything that you left out that kind of stayed on the cutting room floor that you kind of wish was back in?
I wish that I had put a little bit more about her Jewish ancestry, which I really didn't fully understand until I was done with the book, and it was, to my editor. And then I realized, oh, there's more to the Jewish history in India than I realized. And that was a fabulous conclusion. So it turns out that the Jewish people had been coming to India for over 2,000 years to escape persecution in other lands, because India has never persecuted the Jews, and they welcomed them. And so we have Jewish communities in India, 30,000 or 50,000 of them. It's not clear what the number is on the research, but that many came to India during that interwar period to escape Nazi persecution. And they had kosher bakeries, kosher butcher shops, synagogues, all kinds of Hebrew schools, and even in many of the places there are street signs that are still written in Hebrew. And so I just thought, what a fascinating thing. Then I come to find out that some of these Jewish communities were filled with performers, so theatrical people. And then our 1920s Bollywood heroines, at a time when Hindu and Muslim women were not allowed to be on screen, our heroines were women like Ruby Myers and Esther Abraham. So they're all Jewish women, but they went by an Indian name in the movies. And 6 of the 8 movie studios in Bollywood were run by Jewish men. I was I was shocked. I had no idea. So yeah, that was a lovely thing to find out. And I wish that I had had a little bit more kind of saucy things in there about these Jewish actresses and what a large part they played in Bombay. I did put a little bit about Ruby Myers and how she is going to be cutting the ribbon on the new synagogue that Mira's father is building in Bombay. But I was like, oh, I could have put in a whole lot more. It was really amazing. Yeah. And what I didn't realize is, because there's not a lot written about this, but the real painter, Amrita Shergill's mother, was Hungarian Jew. And so the girls would have been considered Jewish as well. And I think this is one of the reasons why they left Europe to come to India, although it's not explicitly said anywhere. But I'm imagining that must be one of the reasons why they came to settle in India after, having such a lavish, wonderful life in Budapest.
Wow. You would never think that, would you? I feel like it's yet another part of history that just is documented but never talked about.
Yes, exactly.
The archives, but all
Yeah.
the information's there. You just didn't know that you wanted to look for it, or you didn't know to look for it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love that. And I
Well,
love that just kind of came to fruition as knowledge from researching the book
yeah,
as well.
yeah. And then I think the other thing is that I thought, why is it that so many women in whatever profession they're in, whether it's sciences or math, or, those women in Hidden Figures who were helping with the NASA spaceships, why do women get forgotten so easily?
Yeah.
Why do we allow women to get forgotten so easily, even though they've done extraordinary things? Um, this real painter, Amrita Sher Gill, she brought so much of avant-garde and impressionistic painting to India, and should be fully acknowledged for that, because painting before that time was sort of courtly painting or painting of religious idols, and kind of very static. And she brought this kind of vibrancy and color and a real sensibility about women and the hardships women face in real life. Nobody else was painting that. So why have we not acknowledged this woman globally? I really hope that 6 Days in Bombay will go a long ways towards helping people remember her. And also not just her, but remembering all kinds of folks throughout history, all kinds of women who deserve to be remembered. I read recently that, Tiffany, right? The man who did all of those beautiful stained glass lamps. Well, it turns out his wife actually designed most of those lamps. His wife designed them, but we never hear about Louis Tiffany's wife. We only hear about Louis Tiffany.
Yeah, that does not, I mean, I'm surprised, but I'm not shocked. Wow. I think that it's such a shame, isn't it? Because I feel like unless a woman is kind of martyred in a way,
Yeah,
from like previously 100 years to now, we don't know about them. We hear about the first woman to do this, but we only hear about it if she's died or if she's disappeared, or
yeah,
it's so sad, and I still don't understand why. And
yeah.
I wish there was an answer, but I think I also don't want the answer,
Why?
because I don't want to be angry, because I'm already angry. I don't want to have a place to place the blame. I think I just want to blame society as a whole. It's easier to pinpoint a non-entity than it is to be angry at what. I mean, there's not one person that's responsible for it,
Yeah,
but I just think it's so bizarre, because how hard would it have been for Tiffany to just say, "Oh, by the way,
yeah. By the way,
it's
my wife.
yeah, it's a joint endeavor."
Yeah. And Marie Curie, her husband wasn't the as brilliant as she was, and yet he gets half the credit
Yeah,
for everything.
yeah.
Why?
Like,
I think that we can, as women, start in our own way to make these things happen. For example, my whole life, this is what I've done. If I can find a woman to fix my plumbing, I will find a female plumber. If I can find a woman to be a contractor for something I'm doing in my home, I will find a woman to
oh, I
do
love
that. And when I had my advertising and marketing business before I left that full time to become an author, I would only hire women. If I could, I would only hire women. So
yeah.
I think if we can give women that respect ourselves, then maybe men would give women more respect.
Absolutely. I feel like it is a battle that comes from within as well, isn't there? Because you're told so many things about, oh, women can't do this, women can't do that. And at some point, I think, especially during childhood and like your formative years, you do start to believe that. And it's,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this to someone the other day. I was like, growing up is just a series of learning and unlearning things that you thought you knew.
Yeah.
And you need to kind of get over that a little bit. And it's really hard, because how do you know what to learn before you've learned it? But yeah, I love that. I love the idea of giving women jobs where you can support women.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm in a little bit of awe about that, actually. I can't believe that's never something that I've never considered. But it's like the easiest way to do it.
It's the easiest way to do that, but it's not your fault that you haven't
Oh,
thought about it. I think we're not encouraged to think like that. You
No.
know, whenever we think of, oh, you know, I should call John
Mhm.
if something goes wrong, you know, but I'm like, no, why not call Jane? She lives right 1 mile away, and
Yeah,
maybe she's somebody that we could use. Like
absolutely.
my electrician is a wonderful woman named Christina, and she comes in and she gets the job done. And guess what else? If she screws up, she tells me. She actually acknowledges it. She goes, you know
Yeah,
what? So I call her back and I said, you know, this thing, it wasn't working. So she goes, oh, you know, I think I might not have done that correctly. Let me fix it for you. And
yeah.
then of course, she's not going to charge me for
No,
that. Men will never admit,
no.
you know, male contractors that I've had to hire, they never admit that there's anything wrong.
It's so silly. My cousin works with cars, and she'll often go to the garage with someone, and they'll obviously talk to the person she's with. They'll talk to the man that's with her, and she's like, he knows next to nothing about what you're talking about, whereas I work with it every day. Um, and it's so infuriating.
Yes.
Um, yeah, but even stuff like that, like never just kind of being taught without asking how to change a wheel, how to do this, how to do that. Stuff
Yeah.
that they would be taught if you were a boy or if you were a
Yeah.
son to somebody.
Yeah.
It is fascinating, and it is just kind of taking the initiative to do that, I think. And I
Yeah.
think it's an important step in the world that we need to take, and we just have to
Yeah.
take little steps forward, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get there eventually, and
You
hopefully
know,
sooner than later.
if I had my life to do over again, there's so many different things that I would, you know, do. And maybe I still will, because this is my fourth career. So I think what I might do is to go into construction, just to
Mhm.
show that a woman can be a manager of a construction project and do a great job. I would definitely do that just to prove that point.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I do say this, and then when I used to live with my partner, I would say, "Oh, but you have to take the bins out because you're a boy." We have some liberties.
Yes. Well, you know, I don't blame you, because yes, my husband does take out the trash and I say, okay, honey, the trash needs to be taken out. I just
Yeah,
can't.
no.
But, I'll tell you this. So I was in Abu Dhabi earlier this year for Forbes.
Mhm.
And Forbes does this forum where they invite their listers in the 30 under 30 list, and then people like me who are on their 50 over 50 list. So 50 women over the age of 50 who have done something, that they consider worthy of note.
Yeah.
So we were all in Abu Dhabi for this summit, and the women in the audience were saying, hey, what do you guys recommend for financial, security and stuff like that? So it's these under 30 and over 50 women that are in the audience, and there's 5 of us on stage from all these different age groups too. And nobody was saying anything. So I said, well, okay, well, I'll tell you what my husband and I do. We, for the first 5 years of our marriage, fought like crazy, because I didn't get married until I was 36. I already had a business. I already had an identity. So I had my own bank account. I had a business bank account and a personal bank account. My husband had, his own thing going on, and he was 39 when we got married. Okay, so we get married, and all of a sudden, I don't even think about it. I start commingling our funds into one bank account. And we're fighting like crazy because I see where the money is going. And I'm like, $30 on a lipstick is okay for me to spend, but it's not okay for you to spend $30 on a pair of shoelaces that you liked. Okay. So he's like, what? And I'm like, so I'm talking to my younger brother one day, and he goes, well, listen, why don't you just do a yours, mine, and ours kind of bank account? And the our bank account is the joint account from which all the bills are getting paid. And so then you don't have to worry about every little expenditure. The bills are automatically going to get paid. And so I thought, what a brilliant idea. Now, this year we celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary, and I don't think we would have made it this far if we had not implemented that. So I look out at the audience, and all these under 30 women are texting each other. And I'm like, what is going on? Well, I thought maybe I had just lost their attention.
Yeah.
But they came up to me after the presentation was over. And they said, Alka, we were texting each other to try to figure out whether everybody else had independent bank accounts from their husbands, and we don't. So we are going to, as soon as we get home, declare our independent bank account, so that nobody is questioning then what we are spending our money on, because that's us. We are making the money and we are spending the money, but there's a joint bank account on which, from which all of the expenses are getting paid. So we don't even have to fight about it.
No.
So I thought that was brilliant. So if you're out there and you don't have your own bank account from your husband's, please just set one up. He doesn't even have to know if you don't want to tell him, but set it up. And it's really a great way to mark your independence. And then also it just will make your marriage a lot easier.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think especially in this day and age, it is so important to have that financial independence for yourself in general. And as long as everything's taken care of, it'll be fine. Go buy your lipstick. It's all good. If you
exactly.
buy your lipstick. No, that's a really good idea, actually. I think that's something that people think about when they get married, isn't it? It's like, oh, well, we'll have a joint account and we'll just spend from our joint account. But actually, I think it does create more problems than it solves. It sounds good in theory, but why not have both? You can have both.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourself to one. I love that. Perfect. Also incredible for being at Forbes. Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. These women are incredible. I was so impressed. They own companies. They started software. They developed and built software. Some of them have started health institutions for women. They are just remarkable. Some of them have obtained the seed funding and then taken their business to an IPO. They have hundreds of employees, some of them. I was just so impressed. And I just thought, oh my God, I haven't done a fraction of what these women are doing. They are incredible. Like, they're doing the kind of thing that I think, that I think, people in the movies that I see are doing, and so my hat is off to these women. They are just, they're doing what you and I would be like, wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I mean, half of the acronyms that you said just then, I was like, what? I think this business talk is so fascinating to me because I genuinely understand so little of it. But it's never been a dream of mine to own my own business. I'm okay where I am. But
What do you do?
I work for Chapter 25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice. So you work with books, which is what you love.
Exactly. And I kind of just fell into it. So I studied acting and I wanted to do acting, and then realized how dog eat dog the acting industry is. And then I was like, maybe not. And then London got very expensive. And so I moved home and I'm here now and I couldn't be happier. I'm thinking of myself when I was struggling to do acting and thinking of myself now. They're such polar opposite people. And I didn't realize quite how unhappy I was making myself by following this dream just because it had been a dream for so long that I felt the need for it to come to fruition.
Yeah.
But I think actually part of growing up is saying, hey, that didn't work. Let's just move on and do something that's not the only thing you love. Try something else. And it's taken off.
So now you just clarified the premise of the Henna Artist, because remember, Lakshmi starts off and she is a celebrated henna artist, and these women whom she works for, they do not bring her joy. They just bring her a lot of income that she is now using to build this house that she has. And she realized, and then on the other hand, she is putting together these contraceptive sachets that are helping men have mistresses who do not get pregnant. So I think ultimately what she realizes is that just because this is providing this certain kind of income, or it's providing a lifestyle that I am enjoying, this is not where I started out in life. This is not what I really am all about. I'm about healing women. So I'm going to go and heal people from now on. And that's exactly kind of what you're doing, because you're healing people through books. I think books are huge healers, right?
Absolutely. I think they've healed everyone I've spoken to, really, who is a keen reader, an avid reader, always talk about how books have pulled them out of something. And I think back to periods where I was down and just felt a bit rubbish, and it was always I'd throw myself into a book because I'd want to escape where I am.
Yeah.
And it just works. It does just work. And I think what's beautiful about chapter 25 as well, not to get soppy about the company, is we genuinely do bring people together and form a community that people can meet people like them in a way that they potentially wouldn't have ever come across these people before.
Yeah.
And building those friendships from there. So yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw in my book my dedication. You know how we always get to have a dedication page.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dedication says, to women everywhere who refuse to be silenced, you are my tribe. And I feel like so many women who read refuse to be silenced. You know, they're reading because they're getting knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
because they are learning about other strong women that maybe they can emulate. And maybe they are escaping into a world that brings them more pleasure. Now, that is a woman who is saying, I am not just going to lay down and die. I'm not just going to lay down and do what you want me to do, world. I'm going to do my own thing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And I really do feel that once I started writing, I felt like I had found my tribe, because the women I meet at the book events that I go to, you know, they're all coming up and they're saying things like, this book really helped me through a hard time. I had a cancer diagnosis, and this helped me to escape into a world that wasn't all about my chemotherapy. Or this really helped me at a time when my mom was dying. And so I could see that your books are really so much about mother-daughter relationships. Mm-hmm. And by the way, did you want to talk about the mother-daughter relationship in 6 Days in Bombay?
I do, definitely. I adore Sona's mom. And I think she's complete embodiment of strength in a world that doubts how strong she is. But she's that silent kind of strength that is like, I don't need to prove to anyone that I'm strong, because I have been strong because you're here. And I think she is such a beautiful character, a beautiful character. And I think there's something about her relationship to Sona that, because she has been there for so long and she has always looked after her, not taken for granted, that's not what I mean. Again, it's that kind of hidden quality of how much someone means to you, and how much they influence and inspire you in ways that you didn't know that they did.
Yeah.
And I think that is truly beautiful. And I just wanted to know what kind of brought that inspiration on for you.
Well, I think that in many ways, Sona's mother was my mother, in the sense that I did not recognize her courage until much, much later in my life. I did not recognize how much she fought for me. I didn't recognize how much she had spoken up for my future against what my father wanted me to do, which is follow a more traditional path. My dad was always trying to get me married, and I just wasn't interested, you know, because I'm one of those women who never craved having children. And so when you don't crave having children, you really are not looking for somebody to partner up with so you can marry them. So I was just dating, you know, I was just like, oh, you know, this guy's interesting. So you do that for a while. It's like, oh yeah, maybe not so much. And then, you know, you find somebody else, you go, yeah, oh, they're interesting. And then, oh yeah, maybe not so much. And so finally, when you do find somebody, you know, it's like, okay, now I understand what it is to go through and kiss a lot of frogs before you find a prince.
Yeah.
And what I was lucky enough to find was my husband, Brad, who is somebody who just respects women. Like, he has never, ever, ever said anything derogatory about women. He's never called them any of those words, the B words, the C words, the whatever words, right? He has just been somebody who has supported me no matter what I wanted to do emotionally. And I think emotionally, it's so important to have a partner who does that, who recognizes where you want to go and then says, you can do it. You can do it. I know you can do it. And, you know, remember that first book, that took me 10 years.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of stopping and starting and stopping and starting before that book was sent off to the publisher. And I remember just saying to my husband, oh, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. He'd be like, I think it's going to happen. Just stick with it. you have to take time off, then take time off. But,
Oh,
just stick with it and you'll make it happen. So I think that finding that person who's going to root for you all the time it's hard. It's hard finding that person, but I think it's so important.
it takes a while, but once you've got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There'll be a lot of people who you think have it and they don't.
And
And
they
you have to keep searching. You're like, oh, this person. And then they turn around and you're like, oh, maybe not. Maybe not next one. But I do think there is someone out there for everyone. It does take longer to find it than you would expect. Some people are really lucky. They find it when they're like 12.
Yeah.
And they're happy for the rest of their lives. But others, it just takes a little bit longer. And I think as long as you're not closed off to the idea that there could be someone, you will always find someone. And I think it's so important to have that backing and that emotional support and strength behind you, that it bolsters you, doesn't it? It pushes you forward in a way that maybe you didn't know you could go. I think that's amazing. That's such a lovely. He sounds wonderful.
And he's the one who got me writing. So I never even knew that I would have the talent or the sort of ideas, to write about. But he said, I love your stories about India, and I think you should write them out. I think you should, be a fiction writer. And for so many years, I just said, oh, no. I'm advertising. I'm a hack. I don't do literary work. But he said you could. So then when I finally did start in my 50s taking writing classes, it came so easily. It was a no-brainer. Like they would give us a writing prompt and I would just start writing. I wasn't just sitting there thinking, oh, what can I write about? What can I write about? It was so easy. It's like all these things had been in some library in my brain. And then all of a sudden they just went out of my pen or out in my laptop. It was fabulous. It was a great thing.
Where did the idea for Lakshmi come from?
That's my mother. So in a sense, what I did was I gave Lakshmi all the attributes of my mother, physical characteristics. So she looks like my mother. And my mother had these kind of green, blue eyes. And then I ended up with blue-gray eyes. And so this is why, and then my younger brother has green eyes. So this is why Lakshmi and Radha and baby Nikki all have these kind of watercolor eyes. And my mother didn't get to have all of the advantages and the decision making that she gave me.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what if in fiction I give her the ability to do whatever she wanted? So what if she could leave her marriage after a couple of years if it's not serving her? So then I thought, okay, why would the marriage not be serving her? Oh, maybe the husband is very patriarchal. Maybe he is hurting her in some way or forcing her to have a child. And then I thought, oh, right, because if she doesn't have a child, she has more opportunities to do other things. And then I thought, well, how would women in the 1950s, which is when my mother was, coming into her age, I thought, what would women in that era have done to keep themselves child-free? Oh, they were using these teas made out of cotton root bark. Oh, okay. So maybe this is something that Lakshmi knows how to do. So then I have Lakshmi keeping herself child-free. I have the husband who is sort of forcing her to leave because he's so abusive. And then she leaves. And then I thought, okay, how is she going to make a living? So if my mother were to have left the family or, not even had a family at the time, where would she have gone and what would she have done for a living? Well, every woman in India knows how to apply henna to your hands and your feet. And, everybody goes to weddings where all of this is done. So I thought, okay, I think that this is what Lakshmi can do for a living. But also what she can do is all the herbal remedies that are available to almost every household, every grandmother, aunt, everybody passes down these herbal remedies. And I thought Lakshmi could understand how to pass this stuff along and to make people healthier. So then I thought, okay, great. That is how this is going to go down. So she's going to have this opportunity to make her own living and, do her own thing. So it was really to give my mother a life through Lakshmi in fiction that my mother did not get to have.
I love that. That's such a sweet way of honoring your mother as well. That's so beautiful. I am, yeah, I'm a little bit speechless actually. It's such a
It,
nice thing.
it was satisfying. It was really satisfying. I only wish that my mother could have lived long enough to
Mm.
have seen the book published, but she did not get a chance to do that. She died about 2.5 years into the making
Oh,
of the book, and it would be another 8 years before it was actually published.
yeah, that's incredible.
But get this, she's always with me because of those books.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
she's actually immortalized through these books.
Yeah.
And in Santa Fe, so Santa Fe, New Mexico, I was doing a book event, and a woman came up to me after I had gotten off the stage, and she said, I hope you don't think I'm crazy, but I saw your mother standing 6 feet behind you on stage, and she had on this gold sari, and she was just smiling at you so proudly, and she was talking to you in your language, which, this woman didn't understand, so she had no idea what my mother would have been saying. But she said, I just wanted to let you know that I think your mom is always with you. And then just recently, I was in Houston, Texas, at a book event, and a woman came up to me at the book signing, and she said, I saw this aura that you had around you, and I asked the universe what that was. I saw this light, and I asked the universe what that was, and the universe answered, it was your mother. And so, like, I don't have these kind of premonitions, right? But
Wow.
it's lovely that other people do. It's lovely that they, also tell me about them. I just
Oh,
think that,
that's beautiful. It's such
yeah,
a kind thing to do, I think, as well, because you never know how the person might be feeling. It's always nice to hear.
yeah.
So lovely. Oh, amazing. I am when you wrote um the Henna Artist, did you always know that you wanted to do a trilogy, or did it kind of develop after with the job?
Oh, it developed after,
Mm.
because first I wrote the Henna Artist, and then it went off to the printer.
Hmm.
And it takes about 6 months for the book to get printed, and then they put the cover on, and then they distribute it to all the warehouses, like for Amazon and the bookstores and the libraries, right? And so during that 6 month period, Malik was knocking at my door and saying, those 140 pages that your agent had you cut out of the book, those had a lot of my scenes in them, and you really need to write a story about me.
Yeah.
And so I resisted him for a while, but then he kept being in my head, like he wouldn't let me go to sleep. So I thought, okay. So I got up and I started writing, and I had written about 20 pages. And my agent said, let's send these off to the editor. So we sent them off to the editor, and she gave us a second book contract for The Secret Keeper of Jaipur before the Henna Artist was on the shelves.
Wow,
Mhm.
amazing.
And then I finished that. And then, and then, as the Henna Artist was published during the pandemic. So I couldn't even have any book events. I couldn't
Yeah.
have any launches, nothing like that. And so when the world opened up, then both books had been published, and I was out touring, and my agent called and said, okay, I want to propose a third book to them. What do you think? And I said, oh my gosh, really? I don't have any time to write 20 pages for you.
Hmm.
And so she said, well, just write me up a couple of paragraphs.
Hmm.
So I wrote 3 paragraphs, short paragraphs. I said, this is what it's about. It's going to be about Paris. It's going to be about India. It's going to be about fragrance, and Radha meeting up with Nikki, the baby that she had to give up in the Henna Artist.
Hmm.
So my agent said, okay. So she sent that off to the publisher, and the publisher gave us a third book contract.
Amazing.
So it came about very organically. I had no idea that this is something I was going to do.
Yeah.
And what's funny now is that the publisher is calling 6 Days in Bombay my first standalone novel. But actually, I write every single novel as a standalone, just in
Yeah.
case people have never read any of the other books.
Oh, that's
So
so
it's actually my 4th standalone novel.
yeah. Full standalone after. How was it writing? Not necessarily a standalone, but in a different world. How was it to go from the world of the Jaipur trilogy to?
Oh, good question. I think that because I had already dipped my toe in the water with 6 Days in Bombay, and that with The Perfumist of Paris,
Mhm.
having set so much of it in Paris and then so much of it in India, I kind of felt like this was sort of a natural progression,
Yeah.
and I could write about Europe and India simultaneously.
Mm.
So I think that it actually just made a lot more sense. And I've traveled so much through Europe that I really understand the sensibility of Europeans versus Indians. And it makes it very easy for me to, and this is kind of a good point, Neem, because what it does for me is it allows me a detached observance of both cultures
Mm.
that allows me to write about them in a way that can be objective.
Yeah.
So in both cultures, no matter which one I'm writing about, I can talk about the failings of and the triumphs of that culture. And then also looking at it from a distance, I can write about the failings and triumphs of another culture.
Yeah.
And I think that that helped me so much because I am of two different cultures, the East and the West. And to be able to write about them in a way that the West understands the East and the East recognizes themselves in this culture is just a bonus of my dual identity, my own dual identity.
I love that. I love that. It's so fascinating, isn't it, to go from one place to the next when you've spent so long crafting this world, to then step away and find how surprisingly pleasant the journey is, I think, to be different. Yeah, I think it's all beautiful. Like I said before, I think the way you describe things on the page really does jump out and attaches itself to a little bit of your soul as you're reading it, and you really, really do feel like you're there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I've so in 6 days in Bombay, I've been to Paris and I've been to London, so I knew those. The other two I have wanted to go for so long, and it just felt like, oh, okay, I can save the flights. I'm here. I don't need to do it anymore. I've already been. It was stunning. We've got another question. I could listen to you for hours. Absolutely fascinating. Do you have
Oh,
any plans for a book tour in the UK?
I would love to come to the UK for a book tour, but I need a sponsor. Like I need for the Jaipur Literature Festival to invite me, or I need, I'm sure that there are other literature festivals in and around the UK that I would love to come to, but I need somebody to sponsor the travel, and then I
Yes.
will be there. So the same thing happened at the Hong Kong Literature Festival that I went to. It's an international festival early this year. And that was lovely because they sponsored my travel, and then I was able to go and meet all these people and,
Wow.
answer their questions about the books. And yeah, it was lovely to meet so many people there because they were coming from all over the world. And I'm sure the same thing happens in the UK. People come from all over the world to the UK.
Absolutely. I think so. That basically means everyone get writing on online. What is it? Petition
Yeah.
companies. Please sponsor Alka, please. No, I think it would be incredible for you to do a tour over here. I think it would be wonderful. I'm sure there are so many people who have read your books, especially we've got such a large Indian population in the UK who have like the dual identity that you bring to the page so beautifully in a way that I don't think it's ever talked about enough. You see so many people who write all these wonderful stories, but they all kind of come from the same background, or they're all very educated in this way, or they are from this place and stuff. And so I think seeing someone put to page, here's a character, she's both of these things. This is her story in a way that you don't see it often, do you? I don't think I can reiterate it enough. It's so wonderful to see her as a protagonist, to see Sona as a protagonist.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was lovely. I keep complimenting the book.
Thank
I can't
you.
help myself. It was just such a lovely read. So
You know,
we would love to have you. Speaking as
you
a country as a whole, we would love to have you.
Oh, that would be lovely. I have a little confession to make, and that is, the character of Dr. Mishra
Hmm.
in in 6 Days in Bombay. Well, that's really Dr. Kumar from the original series, the trilogy, because in 1937 he was a young doctor. Like I have this whole past of him, right?
Yeah.
I've written out this whole past long ago. And when he first came from the Oxford School of Medicine, he was working in Bombay, and that was where the big opportunities were for Indian doctors. But then he ended up finally in Shimla because his aunt lived there and needed him. And then he started that clinic over there and started working at the hospital over there. And he kept showing up. And I called my agent and I said, you know, he keeps coming into this novel. I keep changing him. I change things about him. I change the way his hair looks. I change his name. And I said, he keeps coming back. And she goes, well, don't worry about it. Maybe people won't recognize him.
Yeah.
But I have had some readers write to me and go, isn't this Dr. Kumar? And I'm like, yes, it is. And so, I can't give you the spoiler in case people haven't read the book.
Try and talk around it and I'll see if I understand what you mean.
Okay. And so he is, he needs to, because we know he will be with Lakshmi in the trilogy, you know, he just has to watch himself.
Yes. Yeah, I get that. I understand. That's so fascinating. I didn't clock it. And now I'm like, how didn't I clock it?
Yeah.
Wow, what a truth bomb.
Yeah.
Incredible. What would you say that your biggest challenge with 6 Days in Bombay was?
My biggest challenge was, you know, it came at 3/4 of the way or 2/3 of the way. And I sent the draft to my older brother and I said, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And so he read it and he actually solved the problem for me. So I have two really fantastic brothers. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And sometimes when I discuss something with them, they can help me get to the next place.
Yeah.
Just because I'm so wrapped up in it that I can't see the solution. And so he was able to provide that solution for me. And now I'm trying to figure what that was, but I can't remember what was the conundrum, but I was really stuck. Like, I don't know which direction to take her in.
Yeah.
And then my older brother said, oh, why don't you try X? And I was like, oh, hadn't even thought of that, but yes, that could totally work. Sometimes you just have to, you know, bounce it off of other people, which is why I think writers are in so many writing groups where, you know, they can have other people that they can show the drafts to and then see what's happening.
Absolutely. I find that, so my friend and I had made a pact that we would write these two. We kind of came up with these books and we were like, we're going to write them. And then I feel like research is the putting off, it is the procrastination, generally speaking. And so I was like bouncing this idea and I was like, oh, but I don't know where this goes now. I don't know what this is. I know that I want it to do this, but I don't know how we're going to get there. And as we were talking, I was like, oh, but then it could do this and then maybe it could do that. And just saying like words out loud really solidifies things and like puts things into a different perspective to what you thought. It's that outside view of, well, I read this and I thought this came across this way, and you go, oh, wait, hang on, maybe it does. I think talking to people is such a fun way. It's also just really fun to tell people what you're working on, how you're doing it and stuff. What would you say your typical writing routine is?
So I think about the scenes that I told you kind of come unbidden with, you know, fully formed people in them and what are they doing? And then I just start asking questions to myself, like, what do they want from each other? Why are they even talking to each other in this scene? And then I think, oh, I need to know a little bit more about the hospital, for instance. When that first scene came to me, I thought, oh, who was working in hospitals in the 1937 sort of time frame in Bombay? So then I go do some research and I find out that it's, you know, English doctors, English nurses, and some Anglo-Indians who are, you know, half Indian and half British, and they're being allowed to come and work as nurses here. So then I thought, okay, well, that makes sense. So maybe my nurse is going to be Anglo-Indian. And then I think, okay, so I need to know more about this painter. So I go researching more about the real painter and try to see how much of what she was like I'm going to incorporate into her character in the book. And then I think, okay, I need to find out more information about what was happening in 1937. So then I start planning my trip to Europe, and I'm calling all these people and reading things about what they are sending me. So they're sending me articles like, read this before you come over, you know, look into this photo archive so you can see how people were dressed or what we were eating or whatever in that era. And so I start doing all of that research, and the research itself is about a 1-year process. Like if I compress it all into one document, it would be about a 1-year process. And as I'm doing research, scenes are coming to me, and I'm like, okay, now that is an interesting thing. I could incorporate that into the story. And where would it go? I think it might go in maybe like the next month or the next week after we meet up with these two women. So that kind of thing is happening. So for example, when I have to decide, okay, Sona's done with her day, now she's going home. What does her home look like? And what does her mother do for a living? And, you know, what kind of a place do they live in? So then I go searching for little apartments or flats in India in 1937. And then I find something that I go, okay, I think I'm going to describe this one as their home. And I have these Bibles, these photo Bibles that I set up. I look for the faces that are sort of in my head of all these characters, or I run across a face. Let's say I'm looking for a doctor who is 30 years old, male, Indian. And then I scour the internet, you know, I add AI, you know, pulls up all of these images for me. And then I pick one and I go, that's the doctor I'm going to describe.
Wow.
So I have these photo Bibles of all of my characters. And then I start building my character Bibles. So each character, what do they like to do in the morning? Do they drink tea or coffee? Do they prefer to hang out with friends, or are they loners? So I start building these character Bibles for each of them. And then I finally, when I sit down to write, I'm on my bed and I'm in my pajamas. I love to be in my pajamas all the time when I write. I want to be super comfortable. And have my tea or coffee with me. And my dog Coco is on the bed with me. And I have my laptop table. And then I start writing. And I can write, when I start writing, I could write up to 6 hours a day, 4 hours a day. And by then I have all these notes that are notebooks filled with all these notes. And I have highlighted the salient things I want to include in the novel in my, you know, in these notebooks. And then I've transferred all the highlighted portions into a separate document that I am now referring to as I start writing my scenes.
That's so crazy. I love that. I love how much of a journey it is. And it all culminates in pajamas. I think that's fantastic. I think that's fantastic.
Right.
What best way
at the beginning of the year, I buy 2 pairs of new pajamas.
Yeah.
And those are my writing outfit for the rest of the year.
I love that. That's such a nice ritual to have. Do you have any like release day rituals for when your books come out?
No, nothing at all. I know that I always have to do an unboxing video because my publisher insists on it. So I do the unboxing video, but I think that's pretty much the only thing that I do.
Yeah. Do you, what would you say if you had to go out and celebrate with a meal? What would be your meal of choice?
Well, I think I would definitely just do my Indian meal. So it would be aloo gobi sabji, which is the cauliflower potatoes curry. And then I would have the naan. I would have a garlic naan with it. And I would have some raita, which is the yogurt with some cucumber in it. And then I would have I would also have the eggplant curry because I love eggplant curry so much. And I like butter chicken. I mean, it's wonderful, but I'm not a huge meat eater. I mean, every now and then I'll have something like that, but usually I'm really satisfied with the vegetables. And then for dessert, I have to have mango ice cream, or I have to have gulab jamun, or I have to have, you know, some kind of kulfi.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that is my, so listen, if I ever end up in jail, that will be my last meal that I asked for.
So when you wrote that Sona doesn't handle spice very well, did you base that on
On me, on
yourself?
me. Yes. And do you see how her mother eats jalapenos, that she eats like chili? That's
Yeah.
my mom. My mom could eat really like raw peppers. I couldn't even watch her do it. It was driving me nuts. But I have a much less tolerance for chili than she did.
But I think there's always something to be said about the flavors coming out more when it's not overpowered by spice. I'm
Yeah.
partial to a spicy food, but I don't know how much of that was just to impress my mum when I was younger. And so I kind of built up a tolerance just through sheer force of will. But yeah, amazing.
Oh, by the way, I did do an interesting ritual this time for 6 days in Bombay that I hadn't done before. On my YouTube channel, I put all of these little, tiny little, like 1 minute, 2 minute videos about what I just went through with you, my process for building a historical fiction novel like this. Because a lot of people ask, you know, when does the research happen? When does the writing happen? How does this all come about? And so I did like a 12-part series on how, and you can just go to my YouTube on, I guess on YouTube, you know, look for Alka Joshi videos, and you will find all of these videos. And if there's anybody out there who's actually writing a historical fiction novel, it may be, you know, interesting for you to watch it.
That's so helpful. I love that. I am when you got into historical fiction, so I know you mentioned about the Henna Artist kind of being inspired by your mum, and basing it when she would have been alive and her age and stuff. And then again with Amrita being the like mirror character back in 1937. Did you always intend to write historical fiction, or did it just kind of happen?
It just kind of happened because, like I said, I wanted to rewrite my mother's life, and it had to start in 1955. And the reason for that is because there was a movie that came out in 1955 called Mr. and Mrs. 55 in India, in Bollywood. And the movie was all about these two young people who are arranged in marriage to one another, but don't want to be married to one another. I think they're involved with other people. And ultimately, they look for a way to annul their marriage. And they find out that in India that year, it was the first year that Hindus could legally get a divorce. And that gave me the perfect backdrop for Lakshmi's final, like, she has been hiding her disappearance from her marriage for 13 years. For 13 years, she has not told anybody that she absconded from her marriage, and that she doesn't tell anybody that she did that, because it would be scandalous for a woman to leave a marriage like that. And so now, though, in 1955, I thought, when he comes to find her, and I know he's going to come to find her, but when he finally finds her in 1955, that husband is going to be able to get a divorce from Lakshmi. The two of them can finally say goodbye to one another. This marriage did not work out. It did not serve us well. And then we can separate legally. So that's why it happened in 1955. Now, when my editor told me this is going to be in the genre of historical fiction, I said, what? I said, it's only in 1955. And I said, I thought historical fiction was like the 1800s. He said, no, anything older than 40 years is considered historical fiction. So I'm like, oh, okay. So even if you like went back to 1990, today, that would be considered historical fiction.
Wow. It's so mad. I just think it's like time passes so fast without you realizing that the 50s does not feel historical at all. Although my nan the other day had said to my mum, who was born in the 60s, and she was like, do you remember when we won World War II? Did you have a street party? And my mum was like, no, no, I did not. She just kind of sat looking at her. But I just think it passes by so quickly that you don't, I don't think anybody has a gauge on. I don't think I can look at any one person in the street and ask and tell how old they were now. It's so crazy, especially with fashion rotating the way it does, and like style in and out and stuff. We've had such a refresh of the past like 10 decades really have
Yeah.
kind of come back into fashion over the breadth of 10 years.
Yeah.
So I just think it's mad. It's crazy. I can't believe in 20 years since 2000 and suddenly everyone's in low-rise jeans and butterfly clips again. It's crazy. I find it all so fascinating, like the passage of time. And I think that's why I do enjoy historical fiction so much. Is there any period of historical fiction that you would be reluctant to read? Is there like a certain
No.
range? Mm.
No. I don't think so. I think that the more we know about our history, the better off we are. I think especially as women, because we can find so many amazing and worthy role models to point to and say, we didn't just arrive here, 10 years ago and end up in this place. We had all these women before us who blazed these trails, and we can honor them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also so fascinating in regards to female characters and even in Shakespeare plays, and how we look at them through a different lens now, when before they were probably pictured completely differently to how we thought about them.
Yeah.
So I think you're completely right in that. I think that's such an interesting take on historical fiction. Is there any kind of genre that you have yet to dip into that you would like to explore, and any that you would really not want to?
Well, so, for years now, because we've always had dogs, and for a long time we had miniature dachshunds, I have been writing these little and drawing these little picture books, stories about my dachshund.
I love
And,
that.
and so I would like to possibly get into that. I would also love to do a graphic novel of the Henna Artist.
Yeah.
And that would be like, years in the making. I think that would be a big undertaking, but I would love to do something like that. I think that would be really fun. And then I want to get into screenwriting. So 6 Days in Bombay, I am actually embarking on a screen adaptation of 6 Days in Bombay, and I'm so excited about it.
That's the thing. I think reading it, I was like, this would be a gorgeous show, a gorgeous film. I think it's pure Oscar material.
Yes, I think so too. And can you imagine all the fabulous actors like Dr. Stoddard? I always imagined Bill Nighy in Dr. Stoddard's role. And I pictured a very young Emma Thompson as Sona. And I don't know who the young Emma Thompsons of today are. Maybe Keira Knightley, or I don't know, Emma Stone. I have no idea. But one of those would be a fabulous, Sona. And so there's so many fabulous, I think, British actors who could be in this. And I want it to be a UK-US joint production, because I think that the Brits do such a great job. You guys do a great job of screen adaptations and productions. They're just, the actors are amazing.
I think in particular when based in a different time as well. I think we do that really well. To toot our own horn, we do war films incredibly.
Yes, absolutely. The period pieces are incredible.
Definitely. I think it'd be so beautiful.
Yeah. But Neve, thank you so much for having me on chapter 25. I've just so enjoyed talking to you. It's been a great conversation. Like, I don't know how much we talked about the book, but I loved the conversation. It was lovely.
I've had such a lovely time, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping for the book tour. I'm hoping for the screenplay. And I really want to wish you all of the best of luck for everything you're about to embark on and will embark on in the near future, I'm very sure. And thank you so much as well for writing such beautiful stories.
Oh, thank you so much, Neem. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody. I hope I'll see you at a UK tour sometime.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day as well.
Thanks.
Bye. See you later.